A few years ago, I was in my hairdresser's chair, talking to her about the day at work and all the stress I'd walked in with that evening. Somehow the conversation drifted, the way it does in a salon, to golf. She smiled at me in the mirror and said, "Isn't it interesting that even when you chose a hobby, it's one of the hardest ones you could possibly choose?" Whoops. Yeah, I laughed, and then I didn't, because she was right. Even the recreation had become another place to perform, another mountain to climb, another place to prove myself. Hi there, I'm Wendy Rimmelsbacher, and welcome to the podcast show Dim to Daring. Do you feel like there's something bigger waiting for you, but you're not sure how to make it happen? You're in the right place. I'm here to bring you inspiring stories, powerful insights, and practical strategies to help you reignite your spark, realign with your purpose, and take those bold steps towards the life you were meant to live. Let's dive in, because you're not finished yet. Welcome back to Dim to Daring. If you listened to the last episode, you already gave yourself permission to put something down. Today I want to talk about what's actually underneath that, because permission was never the whole story. A few years ago, I was in my hairdresser's chair, talking to her about the day at work and all the stress I'd walked in with that evening. Somehow the conversation drifted, the way it does in a salon, to golf. She smiled at me in the mirror and said, "Isn't it interesting that even when you chose a hobby, it's one of the hardest ones you could possibly choose?" Whoops. Yeah, I laughed, and then I didn't, because she was right. Even the recreation had become another place to perform, another mountain to climb, another place to prove myself. I've wondered about that ever since. How often do we take something that was meant to fill us up and unknowingly turn it into another measuring stick? Maybe it's your garden, your workouts, your grandkids, your volunteering. Even the things we love can become heavy the moment we attach our worth to how well we do with them. That's what today's episode is really about. For most of my life, I thought stress was just part of my personality. I thought being busy meant I was responsible, that carrying everything meant I was dependable, and that pushing harder meant I was successful. Looking back, I wasn't living from peace. I was living from proving. I don't think anyone consciously decides that. It builds one small moment at a time. Someone thanks you for stepping in, so you keep stepping in. Someone appreciates that you can handle a hard situation, so you become the one who always handles the hard situations. Someone calls you reliable, and suddenly you're working very hard to never let anyone down. None of those are bad qualities. Dependability, generosity, commitment, those are all gifts. The problem is what happens when the gift turns into an expectation, and the expectation turns into your whole identity. I spent more than 30 years in a career that demanded a lot from me, and I loved it. I loved solving problems. I loved building things that help people. But somewhere in there, I also became very good at believing everything depended on me. And not in a big ego sort of way, not at all. I felt it was my job, what I was paid to do, no matter how demanding the job or the organization became. I didn't delegate well. I didn't even really know how to ask for help. I assumed it came with the title, so I owned it, all of it. Looking back, I don't think anyone actually asked me to carry as much as I carried. Some of it came from me. I wanted to do an excellent job. I wanted people to know they could count on me. I wanted to leave things better than I found them. Those are wonderful motivations, right up until they become exhausting ones. Even after I stepped back from that career, I noticed something strange. The pace of my life changed, but my mind didn't. I was still hurrying, still trying to optimize everything, still feeling guilty if I wasn't accomplishing something. Have you ever noticed that? Sometimes we change our circumstances, but we bring our old operating system with us. I've lived a lot of life with an inner belief that I wasn't enough, not producing enough, not pleasing others enough, believing I could do everything, be everything, get it all done, and always feel the pressure to be perfect, even though I knew that was an impossible target I'd never actually reach. No one ever does. I don't have children, and somewhere along the way, I decided that meant I needed to prove my worth somewhere else, not knowingly. So I poured everything into my career instead. I didn't strap myself to it exactly. I chose it again and again. But underneath the choosing was a subtle belief I didn't examine for a long time, that if I wasn't building a family, I'd better be building something else that let me feel proud of the person I was becoming. I'm not sure I've ever said that out loud until just now. It takes time to unpackage some of our deeply rooted feelings and beliefs. I've since learned I'm not alone in this particular worthiness journey. Women have come up to me after sharing this at a speaking event. Women whose children decided not to have children of their own. Women who pictured a version of their life that never quite arrived. And they've told me they carry the same heaviness. It's just packaged in a different shape. Maybe yours looks different still. But if some picture of your life didn't turn out the way you imagined, and you went looking for worth somewhere else to make up for it, I don't think you're as alone in it as it feels. And even if you chose your path, and sometimes still feel like an outsider looking in on a life you didn't live, that's true for you too. So back in January, I released an episode and I told you steady wasn't a word I chose so much as one that surprised me. That it emerged from noticing where I felt amped or rushed or that familiar tightness in my chest and jaw. Well, I've been cohabitating with that word for about 6 months now. And like any roommate you didn't fully pick, it's rearranged some furniture that I didn't expect. Back then, all I knew how to do was notice. Now I'm one step further. I'm starting to catch it before it fully takes over. And not always, but sooner than I used to. That's steady, doing its quiet work. This year, I've decided to unlearn stress as my normal operating procedure. Instead, I'm learning to steady my nervous system, to stay in the moment instead of rushing to the next thing just to check it off a list. Unless that day genuinely calls for it, of course. What I've learned is that steady isn't a finish line. It's not something you arrive at and then you're done. It's something you keep choosing. I haven't perfected it by any means, but I do catch my nervous system amping up. And when I do, I remind myself of the acronym for steady. Soften, trust, embody, align, detach, yield. Let me walk you through what that actually looks like in a real moment, because an acronym is only useful if you can lean into it. Soften is the first move, literally unclenching. My jaw first, that's usually where it shows up most on the outside, then my shoulders, then my hands. Stress lives in the body before it ever shows up as a thought. So softening is where I start every time. Trust is the harder one. It's trusting that I don't have to solve everything in this exact minute, that the world will still be standing if I take a breath first. Embody means coming back into my body instead of living up in my head. 3 steps ahead of myself. Sometimes that's as simple as feeling my feet on the floor and getting that grounding feeling. Align is asking myself, does this thing I'm about to do actually match what matters to me? Or am I just reacting to an old expectation or a list sitting in front of me? Sometimes asking this question alone lets my body start to relax and put things in perspective. Detach is the one I resist the most. Detaching my worth from the outcome. I can care about something deeply and still be okay if it doesn't go perfectly. And yield is the last step. Yielding to the moment instead of fighting it. Not giving up, just no longer banking the rest of the day against the outcome of this one thing. To be clear, I don't run through all 6 every time. Some days it's just the word soften, and that's enough. But having the whole sequence gives me somewhere to land when my nervous system starts to spike. I believe it's something I'll keep catching again and again until, hopefully, my body finally releases years of practiced inclination towards amping out in the first place. Here's a small, almost silly example. I used to walk into the shower already 3 steps ahead, mentally answering emails and lining out my to-dos before my hair was even wet. A few weeks ago, I caught myself doing it again, and I made myself stop and just feel the water hit my shoulders. That's it. Just warm water and pressure and nothing else. 10 seconds maybe. It felt so good to be in the moment. And it struck me, this is available to me every single day for free. Well, for the cost of water. And I've been skipping past it for years, like it was an inconvenience instead of a gift. What if we slowed down and actually let some of the mundane, everyday things we do become a gift, instead of a chore to rush through on the way to the next thing? And here's a distinction I keep coming back to. Proving says, I am what I accomplish. Peace says, I am, and then sometimes I accomplish things. Proving asks, did I do enough today? Peace asks, was I present today? Proving measures your worth by output. Peace, it assumes the worth was never in question to begin with. Here's something I've been experimenting with, and maybe you'd like to try it too. The next time you notice yourself rushing, striving, or feeling like you need to earn your place in the room, pause and ask yourself this. What would peace choose right now instead of proving? Not forever, not for the rest of your life, just in this moment. Ask it, then pause and notice what happens in your body. Do your shoulders start to soften? Does your breathing slow down? Do you feel more present, more aligned, more grounded in yourself? Take a breath and actually try that before you keep going. And if peace turns out to be the truer answer right now, what's the one small thing you'd do differently in the next 5 minutes? This isn't a life overhaul. This is just the next 5 minutes. That's usually where I feel the shift first too. My shoulders drop. I stop racing ahead to the next thing and actually enjoy the conversation I'm having or the walk I'm taking or the day that's unfolding. And what's interesting is I end up accomplishing what I needed to get done anyway, maybe not in the same order of priority. I'm just not carrying the same weight while I'm doing it. I don't think you drift from proving to peace by trying harder. I think you get there the way I'm getting there, by noticing, by catching yourself starting to spiral a little sooner each time. The catch itself is small. For me, it's noticing shallower breathing right before a thought like, you should be doing something right now, before that thought flashes through. Or a faster heartbeat, insisting I take care of something that isn't even urgent. That's the moment. Not big dramatic realization, just a tiny physical cue if I'm paying attention to it. What does that catch look like for you? Maybe it's a sigh. Maybe it's snapping at someone you love over something super small. Maybe it's just a familiar low-grade dread on a Sunday night. whatever yours is, it's worth learning to recognize, because that's exactly where proving and peace split into two different paths. I will always be honest with you about my journey. I'm not there yet. I still catch myself rushing. I still catch myself trying to prove. But now I notice. And sometimes that's where change begins. Not with perfection, but with the awareness. If you take one thing from today, let it be this. You were never required to earn the rest you already deserve. Permission was step 1. Peace is step 2. Next time we go after step 3. One brave decision. Because insight is wonderful, but at some point it asks something of you. Will you ignore it? Or lean into it when it does? Until next time, keep moving from dim to daring. Thank you so much for joining me today on Dim to Daring. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you subscribed, shared it with a friend, or left a review. It helps more women just like you discover the show. Remember, you're not finished yet, you're just getting started. Until next time, keep daring to grow and shine.